I'm a bad motherfucker.
Hey everybody, we have a very special guest. I'm super excited. Blair White is here. She's a popular Texas-based YouTuber and political commentator who typically covers social and political issues surrounding gender politics and woke ideology. She was the first openly transgender woman to appear on the Joe Rogan Experience. Now, that's one of the episodes I didn't see, so that's why this is extra exciting for me. Welcome to the show, Blair.
Thanks for having me. I've been a viewer of the show for a while, and I remember watching you on Young Turks as well when I was younger, so it's interesting seeing your evolution as well.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, it's I definitely have had an evolution on several fronts. Definitely.
Yeah, me too, a few.
You're transitioning?
I'm transitioning.
We've been going through
What is
changes, you
this?
know.
I'm this is my trans politics.
Yeah.
I wrote this joke recently. Maybe I don't want to. Maybe not burn it here. Save it for the stage. But anyway, it was about the Pride parades and what has happened to the Pride parades. My friend who's gay, he said, you know, it's not really much to do about Pride. It's more about everyone gets to have their sexual fetish on display. And I just want to show you this video. Now there's an edit in the middle of this, but I just want to get your so this is from the West Hollywood Pride Parade this year, and you see all the fellows out there being very proud of their fetish wear, and here, let's just play it.
I really can't. You know, I met that dancing bear out here in front of the WeHo. Oh my gosh.
What has been your favorite part of this event so far?
I loved going out there and seeing all the kids.
Jesus. I live
So-
out
Oh my
there.
God.
I wouldn't have gone out because I wouldn't want to be all boned up.
So
Said kids.
So
God.
my gay friend texted me this. He said they always present it as family friendly, but it's not. It's always a bunch of people who are celebrating their kinks. Now, would you
Absolutely. And
go ahead?
that's something that I feel like if you take your kid to Pride, you're at the very best ignorant and you haven't been on, you know, social media or watched the news for the past 6 years since the stuff has really been uncovered. Or you're just a bad parent, one of the two. It's a very over-sexualized environment, Pride. In fact, LGBT spaces usually are over-sexualized. It's not a place for kids. Like, that's one of the things that from a very early age, you know, as I was kind of growing up and figuring out like, okay, maybe I'm not a straight person. Maybe there's this thing called trans that might apply to me. I still never felt as if I had a place in that community because I've never been someone who's enjoyed that vibe. And you know, it's quite clear it's not a place for kids, and yet parents still bring them, particularly single moms. You know, white single moms. That's their biggest. That's their Christmas. So
What is it about? So
I don't even want to have a 16-year-old at a comedy show I'm doing.
exactly like if
I feel guilty
Right.
of doing my act now.
I know I don't want to.
I guess I don't want him to learn on the street. It's real weird.
Yeah, I feel the same way when there's every once in a while when I was starting out comedy in Los Angeles, we'd go up in non-traditional
Yeah.
spaces like at a coffee shop or somewhere, and they'd have a comedy show, and every once in a while there'd be someone with their like 10-year-old or 12-year-old, and we go, hey, you know, this is an adult show. They're like, no, she's fine. It's gonna, and I'm like, no,
Right.
it's not gonna be fine. And they're like, no, it's fine. So
I have to address it. I can't just sit and like.
So at first, not only is it not fine, but it makes everybody else self-conscious, right?
Yeah, it creates an uncomfortable environment for those people that are in the environment that know it's not right to have them there. And it makes you feel like you're doing something wrong by, you know, doing what you want to do. But for me, I don't know what it is. I think it's the rainbow quite literally has some sort of like hypnotic effect on like white guilt, you know, women and people who just desperately want to prove they're part of something or okay with something. And so to them, you can't criticize it at all because rainbows just mean love and happiness and joy, and all the uglier stuff. It's almost as if they can't see it, but that's not.
It also
obviously
means
an excuse.
Munchausen syndrome.
So
For the trans parents, for
Yeah.
sure.
So I just when I see this, I just
I really can't. You know, I met that.
It's gross.
It's
gross.
What are they proud of?
Fetishes.
I don't know. I kind of come from the school of thought that, you know, to be proud of something would, you know, involve some sort of accomplishment, some sort of goal that has been met, some sort of thing you earned or worked for. And you don't have to work for being gay. I mean, you're just fucking gay.
I mean, it is kind of an accomplishment that they got. Everybody's like, hey, this seems fine.
Yeah, everybody thinks that this.
How'd you pull that off?
Well, the psyop, yes. But to their credit, or to their lack of credit, actually, they didn't even do that. I think there was a psyop that was placed upon the LGBT community, and they're all just so, you know, the thing about LGBT culture in general, all the gay men, there's an over, you know, emphasis on partying and drug use, and that's a broad statement, but at the end of the day, this is a demographic that doesn't have kids. A lot of them kind of don't grow up. A lot of them aren't involved in political conversations. They don't know what's in these books, you know, most of them that are in schools that include instructions on how to be on Grindr and have sexual imagery. They just see the rainbow. You know, they're not paying attention. And then, of course, there are the people that absolutely know what are in the books. But for me, those people are probably more the people orchestrating the psyop, if that makes sense.
So, do you think this? So when you do you think it's like a because we now seen the CIA has co-opted the gay pride flag?
Hey,
and,
MK Ultra, they would call going over the rainbow as one of your trigger.
No kidding.
Yeah, they would always use that Wizard of Oz programming, Alice in Wonderland programming.
MK Ultra.
Yeah.
So are you familiar with that, Blair?
Yeah. I mean, that's been a big part of me forming my ideology as a 30-year-old, you know, and just all the things that we've been lied to from the government, all the experiments, all the, you know, things that have been forced upon us that they'll say for decades aren't a thing. I mean, UFOs weren't a thing when I was a kid, you know, the idea that JFK was taken out by someone in the government wasn't an idea. And now all these things are just kind of more out in the open. So yeah, I think there's a lot of useful idiots and then a lot of really bad actors involved in the gay stuff. I mean, for me, who I am has never been political until the world politicized it. Like being trans, it was never, you know, a thing that involved any sort of left or right in my mind. It was always independent of that. But from what I'm seeing, politics has been injected so much into it that now there are people that absolutely take that label on and it's 100% political for them, particularly, like I've been saying, like white women are the most likely to call themselves queer or non-binary. You know, that's not a trans.
And I'm straight.
Exactly.
You could be a queer straight guy. He's got to paint your nails, I guess. I don't know what you do, but you could be queer.
So
right, because that's one of those words that just means anything and everything at the same time.
It sounds like it's meant to destroy the entire identity while posing as being some kind of friend to the identity. It sounds like it's trying to break it down to nothing is anything. Then the next step was we become those big head gray robot aliens.
You know, I don't think those who are orchestrating the psyop actually care too much about the end result for the community or their minorities that they target, right? So other minorities have also been injected with so many politics. Think of how much we're, you know, thrusted with this, like, you know, black versus white, you know, stuff in the country, race stuff, religion stuff. They don't really care about the end result for that community, how it harms them, which is why they teach little black kids in school that they can never overcome race. That's their new MO. So it's just about, you know, the end to their own means.
So, boy, that's such a great point that you brought up, because they've now done studies, which of course are not publicized, but they're published, that it was right after Occupy Wall Street and the Tea Party. So the left wing was Occupy Wall Street. It was the people coming together to oppose the oligarchy and the establishment and the bailout of the banks specifically. When people were hurting in the country, they didn't bail out the homeowners. They took their homes away, but they bailed out the banks who created that situation. And so the Tea Party, which was the right-wing version of that, sprang up. And then the left-wing version of that was Occupy Wall Street. Now, I'm sure both of those movements were completely infiltrated. But what you noticed right after that, and these studies have shown it, was that even after we had elected Barack Obama president, overwhelmingly, first black president, overwhelmingly, they started to inject racism, white supremacy, into all the news articles that were in. They've done the studies that it just exploded. All this talk about racism, all this talk about white supremacy, it just exploded, and that's because the establishment needed to find a way to divide us again, because we were all starting to come together around class lines and realize that we are being screwed over by the 1%, and that we need to come together and across class lines to oppose them. And they had to figure out a way to get us divided, and they did it. And Donald Trump was a gift to them. And we now know that that Donald Trump, because of what's called the Pied Piper strategy, was handpicked by Hillary Clinton to be her opponent. And then she got the media to prop up Donald Trump. Donald Trump might not have been the Republican nominee had not Hillary Clinton got her her minions in the press to focus on Donald Trump and prop him up, because she wanted to run against him because she thought she could paint him as a racist and all that stuff.
Producers. They tried to pull the producers.
They tried to, exactly. So
You're
that was
absolutely right.
Go ahead, Blair.
You're absolutely right. It is, in reality, when you see the forest through the trees, it is the people versus the elite. It is the people versus the deep state, and all these, micro divisions we have, whether it's race, whether it's look what they're doing at Pride, which the trans, and now we have Islam versus Judaism. All of it, that one's a bit different because religion goes a bit farther, but it's all meant to keep us from seeing our actual enemy. And it's a bit scary because I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I haven't seen as much unity now in 2024. It's been a while since I've seen it. I can kind of feel people getting really tired of the division, getting really tired of, going to war with each other. They sicked us on each other in ways we could never imagine during 2020. I think we're all collectively traumatized by that. And I think that people are they're a bit, they don't want to fight anymore, at least not with each other. So that's what's scary, because you can just kind of hear the chalk on the chalkboard, what's the next way we're going to divide them and get them to fight each other. But it's a bigger war than a lot of these things we talk about. Not to say they aren't important, though. Like I have an entire career based off criticizing the LGBT stuff, because at the end of the day, there are casualties to the psyop being ran and the complicity within the community, which is a lot of children are harmed by it. Women are harmed by it, society. So it's all still important, but there is that bigger fight, like you said.
So in 2020, or maybe it was 20, whenever I had the Boogaloo Boy on. So there was people were afraid of a civil war, and because of Trump's and I think it was the January 6th thing, it scared people. Mm-hmm. And so there was a Boogaloo Boy who gave a speech in Michigan at the Michigan Capitol, and he was there with an LGBTQ person. He was there with an Antifa person.
They were defending Black Lives Matter or something, weren't they?
They were even defending Black Lives Matter, the Boogaloo Boys, and he was saying we're not each other's enemy, and we have a common enemy. And I reach out to everyone in peace. So I brought that person on the show. His name is Magnus. I forget his last name.
Yeah, that's the most racist, evil thing you could say.
So I brought him on the show, and so the establishment can't have that. They can't have us coming together, people from the left and the right coming together and realizing we have a common enemy. And they had articles written about me and a million YouTube videos that, of Democratic channels that just pillared me. And I got ripped to shreds on Twitter and Facebook. And Jimmy Dore's a crazy right winger.
But what did they do again? What did the Proud Boys or the Boogaloo Boys? What crimes did they do?
So I tried to. There was no explaining to people, right? People just wanted to hate me because I reached out to people who weren't lined up with the big scandal is that people like the Boogaloo Boys used to vote Democrat 25 years ago, and they're not anymore. And that's the conversation the Democrats don't want to have, because they are no longer a working class party. They're a party of white suburban women, and the kind of white suburban 100%. Women who take their kids to pride parades, right?
Right. And one of the main differences, between the left and the right, from what I can see, there's more infrastructure on the right to sort of police our crazies. Like, everyone's kind of aware of who the people that go too far on the right are. You can think of actual people who think the KKK is acceptable, Nazis, whatever. There's no system in place for leftists to be like, you know what, Antifa, who was burning down the country for months, maybe those people are bad. Like, to this day, none of these people that were bailing these people out of prison, Kamala, Biden, none of these cities that were excusing that behavior and letting them create little demented cities within them. Was that Seattle or Portland? I don't remember, but
that was Seattle.
Seattle.
Was the Chaz.
That was the Chaz.
Yeah, no one with any power has been like, you know what, maybe our side went a little too crazy. So I'm supposed to be gaslit into thinking, Trump supporters having a bad day on, January 6th amounts to like months of the entire country being terrorized in every major city. Me having to evacuate my home. I lived in Hollywood in 2020 summer during COVID. I saw the thick of it in ways that people from the suburbs or people in other cities don't even really know how bad it got. We're talking feds on the beach, like keeping you from going to the beach. We're talking buildings on fire and the fire department not addressing it because of who was burning it down. And people don't forget that. I think that people are sort of just now having a conversation of like, were we all collectively traumatized during that? And what does that say about who traumatized us? Who really did that? Like,
they're
why
all
were
fed
we
ups.
really...
Antifa and the Proud Boys, they run all of them.
That's right.
If you have a movement of any kind, if it gets to a certain point, 100% it will be infiltrated.
Just like January 6th was.
Yes.
So what I try to explain to people, what I tried to explain to Cornel West, which he's a shit lib of the highest proportion. He didn't want to hear it. Was that those people really? Because he tries to make that stupid argument that the January 6th, they were trying to overthrow the government and overturn an election. And I'm like, really? A bunch of Second Amendment gun nuts showed up at the Capitol to overthrow the government.
With no guns.
And they forgot to bring their guns. I bet they were embarrassed. Yeah. And, half of those people got pushed in by the FBI plants in the crowd, and the other half got let in by the cops who took the gates away. And I know that happened because I saw the video, and now we know that the January 6th committee was a complete sham, which I called out from the beginning. It's a show trial.
Well, when it wasn't legally binding, I had a clue.
Yeah. So, and why won't they try? If you really believe all that stuff that they say about January 6th, why is none of these court cases prosecutions against Trump? Not one of them is over January 6th. Isn't that interesting? Because they knew if they had a real court case that would get exposed that was a psyop by the FBI. They had they had FBI assets inside the Capitol dressed up as Trump supporters before the breach of the Capitol.
100%. And people just don't know that. Part of the entire process of January 6th was really drilling it into people's heads, obviously, that this was, and this is what some of them literally say, worse than 9/11, which is probably the most heinous thing you could take away from that, day. And
well, they
say
did a
about
worse
it,
job setting it up. The fake job setting it up, they did a worse job at it.
Yeah.
So in that way, it was worse.
Worse acting, worse special effects, But at the end of the day, I think people are starting to kind of wake up from this, really intense slumber they've been in due to how overstimulating those few years were. I mean, we were getting hit with, a pandemic and then riots, and then who's really doing the rioting? What is Antifa? Some people genuinely still don't know what that even means. And now there's an insurrection at the Capitol. So people now, I think, have had some time, and they're like, you know what? This has been really insane. And they want to stop fighting each other, because we also see that it doesn't get us anywhere. We went to war in the streets, for an entire summer, and it didn't go anywhere. So
where's all the movements now? Where are they?
What happened to them?
Yeah,
what happened?
If they're real, why are they gone?
So the culmination.
What happened to who?
All those movements, they're gone.
So
where are they?
The culmination of
Black Lives Matter only comes up during an election year. Actually, surprised they haven't really, reared their head now. But I guess they just got so exposed for, funneling. What was it? Was it millions or billions? Was it an M or a B? A heinous amount of money, to buy mansions and to, not help the Black community at all.
And some to Hamas.
Right.
It's some to Hamas.
Actually, yeah, it's in the Hamas account.
They were very forthright about that part of it.
So
right.
the culmination of all that whole summer of rioting for Black Lives Matter, the culmination was the Democrats invented a whole new police department. And they funded it to the tune of $2 billion with the votes of the squad.
And black stripe on the pride flag.
But we got a black stripe on the pride flag.
Don't forget that.
So what do you...
Yeah, and I heard they were putting BLM and rainbow stickers on some of the nukes so that, when those go off,
yeah,
at least...
Yes.
It'd be like a gender reveal. They'll have all the colors spraying out with the
If
nuke.
you could invent rainbow nukes, do you think that would...
So let me ask you...
You might as well have something nice to look at when everything, goes
So
to hell.
I've come to the conclusion or the perspective that all this trans activism, right? The most that this whole groundswell, all of a sudden, it's just trans it's trans all day. It's 24/7 trans, and it's such a minute section of the population. But now you would believe that every other person's trans if you turn on the TV or the media, and But when
Why not put a chip in your head?
But then I saw a video, and I figured out where this is coming from. I saw a video of Larry Fink from BlackRock, and he was talking about forcing DEI and ESG on companies, right? So if you don't know what BlackRock is, they're they're one of the handful of companies that own everything, right? Everything. They own everything, right? And so I'm like, oh, this didn't come from the bottom up. This didn't come from the grassroots. This came from the top down. And so now I've been telling people on my show and it's the perfect thing to divide people. And then a corporation like BlackRock, which is raping the planet and screwing workers everywhere, gets to shield themselves in a patina of, look, we love gay people. Look, we have pride flags, and we're promoting lesbians and trans people of color and gay people and all that, and we get to put them in our cabinet. It's just like,
and you're hurting the climate.
And you're yes. And so, so do you agree with that assessment?
Oh, 100%. And I think that there are, multiple things true at once here. No, it was not, groundswell. It did not just organically. Everyone kind of was like, oh my God, we have to care about these issues. Because at the end of the day, even though trans was a much nicher topic before the, crazy politicization of it and shoving it into the media, it's not as if people didn't have some baseline understanding that, like, there are people in the world that do that and, like, whatever. And whether you had an issue or not, actually, I feel like most people didn't care, It
and was never an issue.
No, it was not. And with the gay issue, I think what's really kind of sad about that is we reached a place where there was not two people willing to sit in a room and even debate if gay marriage was, right or wrong. There was like almost unanimous support for it. And then almost complete unanimous indifference at best towards gay people. The public attitude towards gay people was just fine. And that wasn't going to do, just kind of like you said about how, the race stuff was fine for a while. They can't have that. So they had to, twist it. And the trans is just a sprinkle on top, an extra niche, community. And the other side of that is like gay and trans people, weren't part of that plan, but they are falling, subservient to it because they're also being psyoped into thinking that this is because these huge corporations love them, which is about the dumbest position you could take. But that's most people, the government, corporations, they care about me, So when gay people, especially maybe like millennial and like boomer, like gays, it's like they grew up in a time where you couldn't tell anyone you were gay because it was a bad thing in society, to now there's like Bud Light stickers and like Verizon, trucks doing their parades, and they're like, oh my God, this is great. But they don't realize there's a darker side to that.
You want to say?
Well, yeah, the drug thing is a big deal because not just, know, the lifestyle of doing meth or chemsex or something, but I mean, the whole country is drug addicts of some kind. All of America is some kind of drug addict. Some of the drugs work better than others, but there's a major big pharma aspect to this where they're like, we got to give these to like, especially the thing with the kids is the giving them the drugs and these things that I only heard of bodybuilders taking back in the day, like the hormones and shit. That's like a massive part of this. There's so much corporate synergy with a moneymaker on this. It's really creepy. Like, that's why it's getting pushed so hard.
If you get people on hormones, right? So you got you have a customer for life.
Ozempic you got to take for life.
Right. And so what do you say about that, Blair?
I completely agree. The power of big pharma is something that, although it can seem hypocritical because I am trans and I am on medication for that, it's not something that I'm okay with for minors at all. Big pharma terrified me during COVID. That woke me up. It's like, oh, wow, they're literally trying to put needles in me for shit I'm not consenting to, and when it comes to kids, there is no consent for any of it, for transition, for hormones, for God forbid surgeries. There's many states where you can give these kids surgeries, right? As early as just a couple years ago, you could be as young as 12 in Texas, like 2022 and before, and you could get a double mastectomy, which is the removal of both of your breasts. And that to me is just another example of, an agenda that's been placed on this minority of people that when I transitioned even 10 years ago, the idea of kids doing it was like not even a thing. Like I genuinely once it started becoming a political thing, I was like, oh yeah, I guess that's technically a thing you could do to kids, but that's so crazy. And
Well,
it's really dark, you know, as someone who has actually been through transition and knows the ins and outs of it, you know, the medical aspect of it, the idea that that's even remotely appropriate for a child, I can't even conceive of it. All I can do is speak out against it, which I've been doing for years. And people are starting, I think, to come around, even within the community, which has been really shocking. I'm starting to see people pop up and say, you know what, maybe Blair, who we've been treating like dog shit for 8 years on YouTube, is actually correct about these things. And so that's hopeful. But in the meantime, there's a lot of damage being done, a lot of kids having their lives ruined.
Well,
and a lot of adults, by the way, because there used to be so many restrictions for how you even get on these drugs. They've completely wiped out all of those. So you even have, you know, adults who they're adults, so they can consent. But we all know many adults who are dealing with less than a full deck of cards who
right.
aren't really consenting. What if you're extremely autistic? What if you're mentally ill in other ways? You know, there's just a lot of reasons why the entire medical aspect has been a mess.
Well, in California, I often point this out on stage, is that you can't even use a tanning bed until you're 18. Even with your parents' consent, you can't use a tanning bed until you're 18.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
you can't vape.
but there's certain places in the country you can get a double mastectomy.
In fact, California is a sanctuary state, so there's cases out in Texas with like parents who have a divorce because maybe the dad doesn't agree with the kid transitioning, or the mom doesn't, vice versa, and the parent who agrees with it takes the kid in the divorce to California to have these things done. I mean, really, really dark stuff. And to me, it's kind of a 1 + 1 = 2 that this is going to result in, you know, bad situations and people having their lives ruined. And for me, it's only a few years out that these 15-year-olds are going to be 18, 19, 20 and be able to tell their stories. They already are. But it's just, it's sick. Just to be frank, it's sick.
Let me change the subject just a little bit.
Okay.
Now, when I watch, I've said this before. So when I talk to you and I look at you, you feel like a woman. Like I get woman energy from you, right? I feel like I'm talking to a female. When I see Dylan Mulvaney, it seems like a gay guy doing impression, and the most insulting impression of a woman I've ever seen.
He calls himself a girl, by the way. He don't say woman.
He calls himself a girl. So what do you say about someone like Dylan Mulvaney? Do you think he has a gay guy energy?
100% gay guy energy. I also think that the other side of the Dylan thing is Dylan is a very, 2020s example of a human being that's been caught up in an algorithm and it's overtaken their real life. So they were doing TikTok videos for years with minimal amounts of results. Then they came out as non-binary, went up. Then they came out as trans, skyrocketed. And I think that in a lot of ways, Dylan is an excellent caricature to be sort of the face of so much of this stuff, because at the end of the day, Dylan is clicks, right? It's like like you said, very insulting presentation, very strange behavior. I personally, it's whatever to speculate on someone's, personal, transition and what they're doing and not doing. But as someone who knows what transition does and can see it on a person, I don't think Dylan's on any type of hormones or anything like that. And it's not me saying Dylan is like an ugly person or whatever, but it's like, well, no, estrogen changes your body composition and it changes the type of fat that exists on you. And it changes your aura and your energy, by the way, like you said. Energy is a big part of it. And when you see all these trans people, especially, lives of TikTok, and it'll come up on your feed of this crazy behavior, these big burly dudes going into bathrooms and, talking crap. There are, unfortunately, because, I wish it was more of a black and white thing, there are many reasons why people identify as trans now. Cross-dressers, fetishists, men who are attracted to women and are sexually turned on by becoming a woman, that's a part of it for some people. And then there are people that really felt a certain way from a young age, and people get on me for saying that that's, more valid than a horny dude, but it is, in my opinion. And not only is that my opinion, that was the opinion of the medical establishment until very recently. You could only get on these drugs through realizing that. And cross-dressers were told, no, this is a sexual fetish for you. So when you have fetishists being able to say, I'm a woman, and go into women's spaces, and then women feel threatened, that's because they're feeling that energy. There's a threatening, horny man energy.
So that's what I'm glad you brought it up, because that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you when I was a kid. So I'm much older than you. I turned 40 18 years ago. And
Boy.
I used to watch Phil Donahue, and they would have in 2020, and they would show this underground society of cross-dressers. There were cross-dressers. You turn on the TV, daytime TV, they're cross-dressers, and they would talk about cross-dressing. And just like how the flu disappeared during COVID, it's like cross-dressers have disappeared during this trans era. And so this idea that exactly there aren't fetish, men who like dressing, get sexual kick, men who are still attracted to women but like dressing up like women. Those are cross dressers.
Trans lesbians are lesbians,
and those guys wouldn't want to go in to a woman's bathroom or locker room. Of course they're doing that. Of course that's what.
Yes.
And there's no cutout to try to even stop it. There's people are just like, let it happen.
What could go wrong?
Why do you think
it's like Iraq? We'll be welcomed as liberators.
So what do you think happened to the cross-dressers, and what does the gay community say about that? And the second is, why do you think no one gives a shit about protecting women's spaces anymore?
Right. Great questions. I might talk for a while.
Go ahead.
So one of the casualties of, trans becoming a political thing rather than a medical condition that was handled in different ways back in the day is the definition of trans has been expanded. In fact, even the word transgender is something very new. The word transsexual is something that's also disappeared. And that's also a very important differentiation, because transgender is this umbrella term that includes, I'm queer because I paint my nails. I'm non-binary because I like to wear baseball caps sometimes, but I have, double difference. That's how people who feel that they're boring in life get a colorful label and then get to masquerade like they're something else. Whereas being a transsexual is something that, is caused by gender dysphoria, which is a mental health condition, is a mental disorder. And there's two different things. So unfortunately, because they've expanded what anyone can identify as it, that includes the crossdressers. So they didn't disappear. They just found a new home. And if you tell a crossdresser, no, this is actually a thing you're doing because you're horny, or because you wanted to try on your sister's clothes when you were a kid and now you're living out some other shit, that's inappropriate to say, apparently. I've been saying that for years. It's probably why I get attacked. But and then as far as why people don't care,
can I just stop you there for a second?
Yeah.
So I have I have gay friends, and one of my gay friends said to me, "I'm glad I grew up 20 years ago, or 30 years ago, actually, because when I was a kid, I used to like dressing up in my sister's clothes, and my mom caught me." And so she sent me to therapy. She goes, if it was today, they would tell me I'm trans.
Yes.
And now he's just a
really important part of it.
He's just a cisgendered gay guy now. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's the other thing, that people have this misunderstanding that because someone has gender dysphoria or a bit of gender dysphoria, because it's levels to it, right? It's like there's levels to eating disorders, there's levels to autism, there's levels to any mental health condition. And just kind of way of being, there's different, levels to it. Is gay people often experience, or they exhibit rather, gender nonconformity to a certain degree, which is why there's a certain way of dressing that people say, oh, that's gay, or that looks gay, because they're dressing on that feminine to masculine scale. And so you're absolutely right. Now that gets a prescription. Now that gets a diagnosis of you need to be the opposite gender before you even really understand gender dynamics. And by the way, understanding gender dynamics is a big part of understanding if transition is right or wrong for you. It's like, how would I really live and operate in society if they viewed me as the opposite gender? It's something that you never truly learn until you actually can transition. And then there are regular people who aren't trans who spend their life trying to understand the opposite gender, right? And why they do the things they do. So it's way too nuanced of a topic, obviously, for kids. And gay people do fall casualty to being medicalized as well due to that. But to answer why people don't care about protecting women, I think a really unfortunate truth is that there are a lot of areas in society that people don't really care about protecting women, and this is one of them. I think that there's a hierarchy of wokeness. There's a hierarchy for how people are supposed to perceive these groups, and gay and trans does become before women in these people's minds. So if one trans person gets, their feelings hurt over a law or a situation. Leah Thomas, for example, it's worth all these other women suffering. I don't view life that way. I view life as, doing the most of what you can do with the most minimal harm to people and trying not to hurt people. And, that seems to be the opposite of the movement that's really co-opted the LGBT stuff. And I know that people sometimes think that trans is like an invention of leftism or an invention of sort of wokeness coming about in the 2010s and 2020s, but it's actually something that's been co-opted. It's just such a small group that the amount of people that are willing to like say that is very minimal. I'm a very special case in that instance where it's like, I want to be a public figure to be like, this is messed up. Whereas most trans people that are like me that really transition, they want to blend in and not make any ruckus. So then it leaves, just all these other people that are causing problems. And then like 2 people that are like, hey, this isn't cool.
Hey, if you guys read the amazing manifesto From Transgender to Transhumanism by Martine Rothblatt, the highest paid woman CEO in the country, it's all about ending sexual apartheid, meaning that thing you said about women's spaces. And that's where the money's coming from. And the transhumanist movement's a big part. This is an enemy of all the traditional things. This is to break down all the category. It's literally to just destroy that.
Yes.
So it's to get us ready for transhumanism?
Yes,
is that what you're saying?
And that's why nothing means anything, and they just gape the meaning of the words until they mean nothing.
That's why they can't tell you what a woman is.
Yeah, nothing is anything.
Blair, what do you say? Go ahead.
And it plays into the fact that, just kind of like you said earlier, that you would think half the population is trans now based on how much you hear about it. And that's true because they want as much ownership of this topic. They want the trans rules that they make up to apply to the overwhelming amount of society and really restructure laws and how people treat people of certain genders, because it does deconstruct the entire concept of, like you said, sexual apartheid and gender itself, and what women need in society, what men need in society. And it's harmful because there was a time where things were good enough in the world and people had enough, sense of them to understand that like there are men and there are women, there are gay and they're straight, but there's also like room on the very outer edges for outliers of people who live their life in a different way. But there's a social contract that those people's, rights and needs don't necessarily trump 99% of people's. So that's why you never heard about trans disturbances in bathrooms until it became a political thing. Part of that is that there was new amplification, but a bigger part of it is like there weren't issues. Because as someone who, knows a lot about real trans culture, as in things that have been around since before the politicization of it, that social contract was very important. In fact, it's how people survived back in the day being transsexuals. It's like you work on your transition, you don't cause a disturbance because that's bad for you and bad for everyone else. And there was a line that was walked. And now all that's been eroded for the sake of, just like you mentioned, BlackRock's, what they want and everything.
So I would say someone like Leah Thomas actually sets the trans movement backwards, because it's just like the carpet bombing of Gaza will now heighten anti-Semitism. Having a biological male who's obviously got a physical advantage and has a bulge from his genitalia.
A big one,
a big bulge is who had that's gonna create more anti-trans sentiment.
You harm the cause more than that. That's what I say.
So
right.
Yeah. So would you agree with that? That they're not doing any favors to the gay community?
Oh no. If I could, stand even a 1% chance, I would fight Leah Thomas myself. Like, how dare you? How dare you, first of all, hurt the women in the locker rooms? I mean, the women in the locker room said that there was full-on male genitalia around them. I mean, that is like, I can't even say it's common sense. It's like common basic human decency. I don't even know what to say. It's so low tier, like bottom of the barrel. Don't do that. And yeah, harming trans rights in general, just making it a joke. And there's no infrastructure within the community to combat it. There's me and like 2 people that speak out against it. And I've made a lot of noise in my years doing this, but it's really not enough when you have an entire, media blast of all this stuff. And also, these institutions and these colleges that are so pussy whipped that like allow it to happen too, for just like you said, that the ESG scores, making sure like we can't, we have to ignore our eyes and our ears and see that this is a huge man with a huge dick competing against women we have to ignore it because our ESG score. And
That's the main
It's a
thing.
whole cycle.
Control and reality. We'll tell you what reality is. It's not what your eyes tell you.
So it's like that quote
Right.
from Orwell: the
Yes.
party told you to ignore the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final and most essential command, and that's what I feel like is happening with someone like
It's like
Leah.
a cult now.
I saw Martina Navratilova, by the way, who's now ostracized, or was for at least a period of time. I don't know if she still is, from LGBTQ events, at least. Who, by the way, she's a lesbian. She was a pioneer for women in women's sports and as a lesbian. And her coach was trans. And she stands up and says trans women should not compete with biological women. And even Renee Richards, who was the first trans woman allowed to compete in female tennis, now says that that shouldn't happen and that was wrong that she did that. And just for Martina Navratilova saying that, she's completely ostracized from public, being seen at public events that are LGBTQ. And she just tweeted out something, or retweeted out. Someone made the point that, like Leah Thomas, when Leah Thomas was competing against males, mediocre swimmer, right? And low status. And now that she's a female, now that Leah Thomas is competing against females, top of the number one. And that a lot of the people who are the most, the loudest and most violent trans activists were previously low status males who now, as they become trans, now become high status, and they have a chip on their shoulder against women. Now, what do you say about that?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And, you know, it kind of goes back to, this is a pretty simplified way of like looking at this, but sometimes simple explanations actually do the most for you. In my opinion, when I look at all the problem people, right? The trans people that are causing ruckuses in bathroom, the people that are, you know, doing, you know, going on to sports teams, threatening women, and just even just holding stances that are so like a woman wouldn't hold these stances. They're all attracted to women. And I don't think people necessarily pay attention to that so much. And maybe I'm just also able to like identify it more in them because I kind of recognize like a lack of similarity. Like this person, there's no way you can both feel that you're a woman, even though you're not, be attracted to women, be hostile towards women. You have a fucked up relationship in your head with women.
Yes.
You know, and it comes out in this really demented, extra way. But for me, also, through my transition, I've noticed that I've only gained empathy for women. It's only gone up. Like I've only experienced more of the things that make you kind of understand like how fucked things are on a day-to-day basis for women, because that's the way I am perceived when I enter the world. And so when I see people's empathy go down when they quote unquote transition, it's kind of like, oh, well then there's the answer right there. Also, these drugs make it so you have no sex drive. So the fact that they're doing creepy sexual stuff is another telltale sign. Like,
oh yeah,
they sterilize you, they chemically castrate you. You shouldn't want sex.
A lot of this is about passing too. I like the thing where like, hey, kids got to start. I remember somebody told me, and I thought it was like really great. They go, well, if you get them before puberty, then there's their best chance of looking the best they could possibly look. So it's very like your outer appearance is the most important. Yeah. Like if I felt like I was a woman right now, it wouldn't depend on you telling me you felt that way. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, to make the spell work.
So yes. So I've been told this by gay people that a lot of parents, a lot of straight parents, want their kids, if they think they're trans, to go on puberty blockers as soon as possible, especially if they're male to female, so that they can be passable and they won't go through puberty as a male, and they'll miss that, so they'll look more female, so they'll be more passable, and that will make them feel better.
I'm sure that you could just do that too. Halt your entire biological process,
and
it'll be fine for you long-term health-wise. Why not?
Right.
What do you say to that, Blair?
It's a pretty, sick way of looking at it, because you're prioritizing someone's aesthetic or the way that they look, right? Their facial structure, their whatever, over their ability to have children in the future, over their long-term health in many different categories. I mean, I could go on for days about the things that you need to know about what transition does to your health in other areas, whether it's bone health, whether it's, cancer risks, whether, that's all drugs and whatever. But, you're prioritizing all these things beneath the looks of someone. And it's a lie even, because there are plenty of people that transition when they're an adult and have a much more level-headed, approach to it. They can consent to it and they're fine. It's all twisted how they look at it.
What age do you think someone should be allowed to make a transition?
For me, it's 18. If you can die for the country, if you can, vote, if you can, I think alcohol probably should also be 18, but if you can do all those things at 18. What's that?
If you can get those awful ear gauges, you should be able to.
Yeah, if you can ruin your body with tattoos, you can ruin your body with whatever else. And for me, that's the line. And I think that's a pretty solid line. But there also is something to be said about, even if you are 18, maybe waiting even a little bit longer, because your brain does continue to develop. But that's the same kind of advice you can give for people that even, like I said, want a tattoo or anything else. But the idea that should be lowered, I mean, that doesn't make sense to me.
I'm with you. So now, a couple weeks ago, you went to a gay pride fest.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was in Texas. And let's just play a little bit of it, and then we'll get your reaction to it. Here you are, just asking people straight up questions that are just normal questions that you would think adults would be able to have answer and have these kind of discussions. But we're going to find out that they can't. Here we go.
In here. Yeah. How do you feel about gender affirming care for minors being banned here in Texas?
The government should have no say-so in what a parent's decision is for healthcare for their child. Like, that's not up for a political debate.
And see how we can listen to opinions and it's just an opinion, it's just a person talking, whereas they're
Even
afraid to
wrong.
talk or us talk. Do you think Trump or Biden is more supportive of gay marriage between the two? Because Trump was the first president to enter.
Piece of shit. I hope he rots in prison.
That's an opinion, but he was the first president to enter office supporting gay marriage, in history.
Say that again?
He was the first president to enter office supporting gay marriage. No, it's objectively true.
Really not. Oh, is that what's happening?
It's true.
Are you trans and
Ew, they're mentally ill.
supporting Trump?
I didn't read that.
If you are, then fuck you. You're gonna be on.
Whoa.
That's so.
That was like tortoise in the hair.
So that you make an objectively true point, and I never thought about it until I heard you make it. That Obama didn't support gay marriage when he came into office. Bill Clinton didn't support gay marriage when he came into
They
office.
think it's a sacrament.
The first president to support gay marriage coming into office was Donald Trump. I never even thought about that. So you ask them, who do you think supports gay marriage more? And they end up you're not allowed to have a different political opinion. You're only allowed to have one opinion. That's called groupthink. That's what Orwell warned us against. And so there they are, the gay community, which is supposed to be open-minded, being the most narrow, constrictive, rigid thinkers. And if you step out of line, you're told to go fuck yourself. That is,
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
And-
So how do you think they don't see that they've become the thing they claim to hate?
What, a silly white woman?
A rigid, narrow, groupthink enforcer. You're not allowed to. The whole thing about being gay is that you are supposed to be out of the box and do your own thing, but you can't have a different political opinion. How do you deal with that?
It's kind of nut. They can understand 1,000 genders and not two different opinions. Just one opinion and 1,000 genders. Quite literally, by the way, if people watch that whole video, one of the questions I asked everyone was, how many genders are there? And every single person said infinite. Their answer was infinite. Every
It's
single
like
person.
the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a butterfly, cosmic butterfly. But it's weird because the idea that Trump hates gay people is what? I mean, he had a gay wedding at his house 2 months ago. Show me someone who likes gay people enough to have a gay wedding at their house. I mean, I wouldn't do that.
So why do you think that gay guy?
Well, now black people are kind of gay people if you read the flag.
Why do you think? If you read the flag, why do you think gay people like that have such a visceral hate for not only Trump, who, as you said, supports gay marriage, but someone like you, who's obviously gay, is trans, but just has a different political opinion? Like, what? How does being a Democrat it's intertwined with being gay?
I know you ain't black, but why the gay part?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, it's I think it's this weird sort of thing that pops up in, you know, smaller groups of people that do have that sort of government psyop put on them. You know, Black people deal with it as well, right? It's like if you're Black, there's a certain script you have to go off. It's a little more loose than the gay community because the gay community is a little smaller. But I think the smaller a group is and the more that they feel like they're like fighting for survival, because part of that brainwashing is making them feel like they're undergoing a current genocide against them right now. They literally say that. So a lot of them are literally thinking.
I've heard a gay Amish guy on YouTube say that there's a genocide being.
Wasn't a character? It was a real guy who was like, I'm gay and Amish.
You know the guy.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I've heard that guy say it, that there's a genocide being perpetrated on the trans community.
Yeah, they say that.
Tis a genocide, English.
Yeah.
It's such a sick talking point because at the end of the day, if you take out like all the, you know, fetishists and people who are calling themselves trans that aren't, if you look at even just actual like real trans people, it's like they're dealing with a mental health condition. So it's like you're telling people already dealing with other mental health issues and there's a genocide happening against you. And so you can see how sometimes, you know, when their talking points get so hysterical, I genuinely feel like some of them feel like they're fighting for survival in every moment, which is, you know, pretty sad. And you can actually gain some empathy for how they've been psyoped, right? It's like, this is also one of my things when I look back at COVID and how we all treat each other during the pandemic. I finally got to a place a little while ago, maybe like 6 months ago, where I started to get almost emotional and feel empathy for people that, you know, I looked back and were screaming at me to put a mask on or, you know, being crazy in the streets about it or enforcing, you know, social distancing in this rude, you know, offensive way to people who didn't want to comply. And it's almost like I feel bad for them. Their minds have been manipulated so much that I can look at the community and say that, you know, sometimes maybe not for this guy that said F you, you know, I think
depends on your job. A lot of these people got like marketing, all these stinking WeWork kind of jobs. And the higher up you are in that, they rooted out everyone who's not a conformist and not part of the hive mind at these companies. So where were you in Texas?
That was in Round Rock, which is a suburb of Austin. And I had done a previous one in LA. And so I thought maybe Texas would be like a little less.
There was a lot of tech.
So here,
a lot of tech.
So you actually were, so that wasn't the only hostility that you met at that Pride event. The security actually was hounding you and stalking you. I don't think that's too strong of a word. Let's watch a little bit of it. They didn't want you talking to anybody. They didn't want grown-up people, to be interviewed by a trans woman who had maybe a different political opinion than them. It's
not safe. Now, if you excuse me, I got to get a butt plug for my kid.
It's the exact opposite of what gay culture is supposed to be about. Gay culture is, I always thought, was supposed to be about diversity of opinion and being able to do your own thing and have different thoughts and live a different way. Yeah. But I'm going to show you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. You can play it.
Did you not go to college?
Watch this.
Yeah. Why are you still following me? Do you identify as a bully? Hi. So why didn't you do anything when the person was screaming?
So they got they have multiple security people following her.
Yeah.
And now you're going to ask, hey, why didn't you do anything when that guy was saying, fuck you, go fuck yourself, and here.
Having to be hauled off by his friend. Only when I ask questions respectfully to everyone? Okay. Hey, boo, what's up?
Hi.
We're being treated kind of badly here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do not engage with the police. Don't engage with
Look how crazy this person is. What the This is a fan of mine. Get away from me.
Accent?
Oh my.
So
I think so.
That's outrageous.
So.
Oh my God.
And then Mr. Ponytail comes over and starts telling, don't engage with her. Don't engage with her.
I think that was a woman, Jimmy.
Like that is.
No, it was a man.
Oh. My bad.
like the Gestapo came in and was going to let you know who the good people are to talk to and who the bad people are. By the way, that person was a fan of yours.
Yeah, and it was insane because, you know, in this supposed hierarchy, you know, these people talk so much about how trans women are under attack and that genocide we talked about and all this hysteria about the totem pole of who needs protection in the community the most, which they would say is trans women. And like, from what I could see, I was the only trans woman there. It was drag queens, gay guys, whatever. And I'm being like followed by 4 security who were cussing me out. It's like, I'm the only one being attacked. And I was just asking questions. It was sick.
Let me play a little bit more of that.
Tough me, I'm a conservative.
Are you following me too?
Oh, this guy hates
Hi, are you following me too? You don't know?
He's causing problems.
How am I causing
He says you're causing problems. He says you're the one
Yeah.
causing problems. And then and watch how he tries to flip it on you. Watch this.
problems?
Good to hear that.
But what problems though?
We're antagonizing people, making them upset.
So do you think the person that's like respectfully asking questions, people's opinions is the problem, or the people that are screaming "fuck you"?
What have we done that's hindered you? We haven't done anything.
So now his standard was you're antagonizing people and upsetting them. But then when someone does something horrible to you, he's like, well, what have we done to hinder you? It, like he completely abandons his level of harassment. Here, there's more to this. Let's watch.
I just told you there was a person who had to be held back by a person screaming "fuck you," and I'm just asking respectful questions.
Freedom of speech.
I absolutely believe in
So
freedom.
now he completely flips it. Now he's like, well, what? You don't believe in freedom of speech? Well, you're the one who said she couldn't have her freedom of speech because she was antagonizing people with
This
their
feels
speech.
like a trick.
That's right. He completely abandons. He completely abandons what his platform of what he's trying to say. So there's more to this. Why it gets even worse. This guy's really kind of despicable.
Speech, but you're saying that I'm.
Say that to you.
It absolutely is, but in terms of security for an event, I just question why you would think the bigger problem is someone asking people's opinions and respecting all opinions over the person that's having to be physically held back and screaming "fuck you" in a public place with kids around.
Do you feel unsafe?
I don't feel unsafe at all.
Why is there any concern?
You're fake as fuck.
But why? So why are you following her around? Does anybody there
Why
feel?
is this conversation happening,
Right,
sir?
right.
Ginger Bear?
Right.
Is she making people feel unsafe? Then why are you following her around? Why are you stalking
Are you
her?
even gay, sir, with that shirt? You better be.
Yeah.
Hey, hang on.
Why is there any concern?
You're fake as fuck.
I didn't
Yeah.
hear that.
But you felt it.
Felt what?
You're fake.
I felt what?
You're fake.
I'm fake.
You're fake. Because you know in your heart that between two people, one person, hi, what's your opinion on something? Being respectful the whole time. And the other person, F you, oh my God, no, hold me back. That's the problem person, right?
Sure.
Right. But yet you're following me, and the person who did that's probably just off doing.
I'm just keeping an eye on you.
You said you don't know if you're following me, and you're keeping an eye on me. So if I walk over there, you're going to be so fine turning that way and walking that way?
Well, I'm going to continue to keep an eye on you.
That's why I said you're fake.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Being called fake by you?
You're fake. Why? Why?
Well, I think we both know why.
Why?
You know exactly the kind of person that you want.
You guys never say what you feel. Like, you guys love to say, you know, vague statements of, I know why, you know what you're doing, but you can't say it because you don't have a reason. Because you're fake as fuck.
Great, you just blew his cover as a
And
vice
you're
cop.
following me.
And he kept following me. Insane.
And so that guy wouldn't stop following you. So go ahead.
Yeah, I hated him. And the rainbow security getup was killing me.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks like an
Like, I
undercover
could not
cop.
respect that.
It looked
It
like
just
I now
didn't
pronounce-
look tough. It's like,
Yeah.
it didn't look tough.
He looks like I now pronounced you Chuck and Larry, if you ever saw that movie.
Yeah. But he just kept lying, right? He just had
Yeah.
to, and then exactly what you said, when you ask him a direct question, he has to speak in vagaries and he has to beat around the bush. He just can't say, oh, being called fake by you. Well, what does that mean? Well, I think we both know what it means. Well, why can't you say what it means then?
Yeah,
What-
just say it then. If we both know it, then let it be known.
You're that much of a coward. That is a
knew-
very cowardly thing to do. And that's what
yeah.
it seems like go ahead. I'll let you say it.
You know, I kind of guessed that reaction would be sort of like that. I just didn't think it would be that bad. And for me, it's clear that like they have a caricature in their mind of who I am, which is villain, right? So nothing I could be doing there would be anything respectful, positive, good for anyone. And so they just ran with that. But if you look at the reasons why I'm this villain to them, it's like, okay, I don't think minors should have their genitals removed. I, make videos busting pedophiles. I believe in limited government. It's like, it's really sick how much they can turn like very normal views into something that's somehow a threat to them, and what they don't understand is they're a threat to themselves.
Well, go to school for that trick.
Here's you at the West. I think this was in Los Angeles at a Pride
God,
parade,
yeah.
and you asked people how many genders there are, and this was my of all the responses, this was my favorite. Here, watch this.
How many genders are there?
No.
Huh?
I think it's like
That's not a number.
I forgot about that.
Ah.
I forgot about that because it's so old now. But oh my God, that's hilarious.
Here, let's watch the whole.
I think that's the only right answer too.
Let's watch the whole clip. Here we go.
How many genders are there?
no. I think it's like it's. You can do whatever the you want to do.
No, yeah.
And it's just like that question.
Say that. Say that.
That
That's
question.
the
It's
answer.
like, why are you asking that question?
No, that's the
that
answer.
should be
That's
answered.
that. So okay, okay. That's the answer.
That question shouldn't even be a question.
I mean, we're just all in the community asking questions that like we all talk about.
It's really sad.
Wow.
So-
It is sad
Oh,
that
God,
that
that's so
question
funny.
can't be answered.
Can't be answered. Just
'Cause
like
you
what
guys
is a
all are
woman?
Unlimited.
Just like what is a woman? Well, a
Yeah.
lot of people did say that. Infinite.
Oh.
As many
I mean,
stars.
it's a stupid answer, but what
But-
is a woman? Do you mean biologically or legally? Well, there's a lot of ways out of it, but they want to leave it blank
yeah.
because they might have to erase it and change it later.
Blair, what do you say?
But that's what's so crazy because when you mindlessly defend this answer that you're not even sure of in your own head,
Yeah.
you just know there's an answer that makes you look like an evil person or a bigot or a Republican or whatever. It's like, so they don't even like think out these positions
It don't
that
come
they
off too
ruin
bright.
people's lives over. They get people fired over these positions and they don't even really know them themselves.
So, Blair, what would you say is a woman?
An adult human female, especially if you're talking biologically. There's obviously a legal definition. You can change your gender, but even that used to be so heavily safeguarded that socially there's like almost no answer now. But, you know, I always say I am a trans woman. That's a very specific thing. That's not a woman. You know, a woman is someone who grew up and has the experience of being a girl, right? Like that days of girlhood that Dylan Mulvaney claims he would never know because he never experienced that. And I've never experienced womanhood in the terms of being born that way. I experienced some things women experience due to a transition, but that's not enough for me to just blindly say I'm a woman. I'm a trans woman, and that's a very specific category. And I actually like to take it to, if you look at Thailand, there's this thing called a lady boy that people talk about, right? And it's kind of a funny like phrase, and you know, there's a lot of memes and jokes about that. But if you actually talk to them and look at interviews with, you know, people who call themselves ladyboys in Thailand, they don't say they're a woman. They say they're different from a woman, you know? And so for me, it is a different category. Doesn't mean it's a new gender, but it's a different category of person. And the idea that that must fit into the woman category, I mean, it's just not true. So why claim it?
How many
You know, that's not to say, obviously, that, you know, in my everyday life, it's like if someone refers to me as a woman, because obviously I present that way and most people think that, I'm not going to correct people and be like, actually, that's not correct. But if we're having conversations about biology, about how to solve these social issues, then it is different than a woman.
How many, let me ask you, Blair, how many genders are there?
I mean, there's two. It's not a, you know,
Do you know?
algebraic expression here. You know, there's a million ways you can present yourself. Again, too, does not mean that it's like a new gender. You know, this is something that like every other species has figured out. So it's just, again, and when I first started transitioning, by the way, back in, you know, a decade ago in trans years is like 50 years. But, you know, back then there was no one saying there's more than two. Even trans people back then, that was not a thing. Kids transitioning, that was not a thing. This whole like, I am a woman because I say so, that wasn't a thing. If anything, you know, the trans community used to laugh at people like that. Transsexuals were like, that's crossdresser talk. You don't just get to say you're a woman. It doesn't make sense.
Well, what's the point of transitioning to the other gender if there's no such thing as that? Like, it's erasing the whole point.
Well, that's what I
Right.
exactly. It's a great point, Kurt. And I never understood if they say, well, genitalia doesn't make your gender or it's it. And well, then why such an emphasis on
Oh, 100%.
on bottom surgery and things like that? Why such an, if that doesn't make you, so it's just filled with contradictions. Well, listen, Blair, is there anything that I didn't ask you wish I had? Because we have to wrap up. So if there's anything you'd like to say.
No.
Okay, we
No,
cover?
this was a good talk. I think we covered a lot.
I really appreciate you making time and coming on, and I appreciate your activism around this topic. And I think that the pendulum is swinging, and people are going to be able to trust their eyes and ears again, and they're going to have to not listen to the party. And
your answer was wrong about how many genders there are, by the way. The correct answer is no.
No.
The correct answer is no.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No. No.
So anyway, thank you so much for making time, Blair White. Everybody check out her YouTube show, and we'll talk to you again soon, I hope.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Bye, guys.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
His jaw was not moving to the left. His upper neck on the right-hand side was irritated. That's moving great.
Good boy.
That's moving great.
Good check. Good check. Good check.
Oh, there we go. Let's see. Let's get another one. Okay. Let's check. Muscle tone's a little better. I'm gonna check something real quick. His jaw was
Hey, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there for more AM Joy and the rest of MSNBC. And click on any of the videos right here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. And you can get more videos from MSNBC for free every day with our newsletter. Just visit
Isn't it swell? The memes make them sell. They found a rabbi hole, tunnels and all. There's Jews in the walls. Isn't it bliss? The rabbinical grace, soiling the mattresses. Well, let me tell you. If I were Rabbi Shmuley and diddle 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 digga digga diddle diddle dum, all day long I'd diddle little bums. If I were a Shmuley man, I'd peddle all my dildos, dreidel dildos, selling dildos with my daughter and her mum. If I were a Jewish Shmuley man, I'd be digging with a dildo in my bum. I'd wear a grotesque nose and go grab some goyim right on the nipple with a pinch. A Shabbos lap dance brace for the youngest mensch.
At this time, more than any other time, you know, revolution is necessary. It is necessary. Not only based on what has happened with the MOVE organization, you know, the babies that have been murdered, you know, MOVE adults that have been murdered, bombs being dropped on us, but past that to what is happening with all black people, so-called minority people, you know, money poor people. You know, this government, as has been said earlier, has waged war on us. But you know, something about us, particularly here in America, we don't really understand that. You know, we don't really know what war is. You know, for black people, for poor people, that people see as good, that they wasn't forced to do, that they didn't do to try to keep black people appeased, you know, and calm down so that black people wouldn't riot. A prison situation is a crystallized example of that. You can make phone calls in prison. They have movies in prison, but they don't have those things because they just want to be nice to prisoners. They have those things because they know damn well if they don't have, you know, people being able to contact their family, if they don't have, you know, facilities for people to sit there and watch movies, people are going to be frustrated, upset, and they're going to direct that frustration at them prison administrators, and they're going to have riots on their hands. You know, they're going to have people in them prisons turning them prisons out. That's why they have movies. That's why they have access to phones the way they do. And a stop to it when we don't like it, or encouraging it when it's something that's in our interest. You know, we have to call the shots. The people have to take the reins of this system and start dictating, you know, what we need, what needs to be done. And, you know, taking the initiative to do it ourselves. We can't rely on this system. I mean, you know, don't people see what's happening? Every single confrontation that MOVE people have been involved in, every single issue, you know, oppression, economic issues, every single issue facing our people, you know, is something that can be dealt with very, very simply. All people got to do is make their wishes known. All people have to do is stand up and say, listen, we're not accepting that. Unity is the key. Unity is the key to revolution. Revolution ain't nothing to be afraid of. It ain't nothing to shy away from. Revolution, contrary to what officials, you know, this system and those backing the officials running this system, you know, want people to believe that revolution means violence, you know, means blood in the street. I'm saying it can get to that point, but it don't have to be violent. You know, when people come together and take a strong stand on an issue, this government don't have no choice but to listen. Where you think they get their authority from? They don't have no power, but they do have authority to do certain things. Where you think they get it from? They get it from us, from the people. You know, they get it from us
accepting the things that they do to be done to stop it, then you have some people who want to then turn around and say, yeah, well, you know, it's the best we have, and want to make excuses. The time for excuses is over. It's over. You know, every man, woman, and child has to be involved in this revolution. Not only has to be, but is, whether you want to be or not. I mean, our babies gave their lives for this revolution on May 13th. You know, men, women, and children were murdered. And not just move babies, you know. What about all of the young men, women, you know, children 8, 9 years old shot down on the street by cops, you know, by drug pushers? I mean, you know, where do you think that mentality comes from? It comes from this system, from the mentality of this system of getting over, you know, making a quick buck, you know. I'm saying that's where that needs to be done to stop it. Then, you know, what I want people to really, really understand is that it's past time. It is past time for poor people, black people, you know, to realize that this system has failed you. It has failed you. You can't get nothing from it. And what people got to do is withdraw our support from it and start doing for ourselves. That's what we got to do. You know, how long are people going to sit back and beg, you know, this government to do what's right when for hundreds of years all you've gotten is a slap in the face? All you've gotten is this government kicking your ass. That's all. That's all black people have ever gotten from this government.